2, 1. The San Jose Sharks finished the second day of the NHL draft. What did we all think? We're going to find out. It's going to be super awesome, I promise. Maybe not. I don't know. It's Tealtown Live. But of course, if you want to join the show, you can always follow us on all the social media, Twitter, Facebook, all that wonderful stuff. If you want to be notified when we do these videos, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, all the wonderful usual stuff that, I tell you. But yeah, we're here. I mean, I am not going to lie, I am burnt. It has been a very long 2 days. I'm very going to be happy when we put this stream to bed, and then I never have to talk about this draft again. Until we do TTG or whatever else we do. It is me. It is Kevin Lacey. It is day 2 of the NHL draft. And as you can see, my brain is so far gone. Kevin, how you doing?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is going to be one of our weirdest, probably our weirdest draft show that we've ever done. For those of you who are longtime fans and supporters, thanks for sticking with us. This will be a little bit different from the run-of-the-mill draft show that we normally do. I think part of it speaks to the volatility of the draft. I think this is really the full force of the pandemic coming together from the last couple of years, where teams had to basically rely on reports rather than live interaction and seeing players. So there's a lot of course correcting this year. And I think we saw this even in the first round and going back to last year, where Ivan Miroshnichenko and Brad Lambert were in Bob McKenzie's top 3 for his anticipated draft. And look where they went, 20th and 30th overall. So you got the second and the third, you just add a 0 in behind it. So this year's draft was very tough for us to prepare for. Yeah. On top of that, and I'm going to try not to be too salty tonight, Ian, and for those of you watching, but I do need to get the E expletive rating out of the way. What the fuck was the NHL doing putting the first round on a fucking Thursday afternoon for those of us in the Pacific time zone? And then, I'm sorry, I have to work on Friday, so no idea what happened today. So I'm definitely not prepared. Ian,
I will bring you up to speed.
I commend you for sticking with the 4 hours last night. I did watch the draft last night once I got home. But yeah, NHL, you guys dropped the fucking ball.
I thought.
All right, I'm gonna try and have no more f-bombs, but man, I can't.
I see. I was wondering. Like, I thought I was gonna have to file a trademark infringement suit. I thought it was gonna be like a this fucking team thing, and I was like,
yeah. Oh, and you guys know that I try not to swear on the show, just for professional reasons and whatnot. Even though, whoever said we were professional?
I'm definitely not professional.
I mean, come on, NHL, get your shit together. But hey, we're gonna try and get our shit together and have a great show. So thanks for tuning in. And I swear that's it for my my expletives here.
I will not make the same promises. I just. Oh my goodness. Okay, so. Obviously, just to recap night 1, even if you didn't watch the 4.5 hour stream that me and Mark did, or just lived under a rock for the last 2 days, the Sharks obviously started off by they were going to pick 11th, and me and Mark came online and we're like, yeah, we'll do the first 10 picks or so, and then we'll do 11, and then we'll get the hell out of here. And then the Sharks traded with Arizona. They traded the 11th overall pick for 27, 34, and 45. The trade itself, even in hindsight, even with the benefit of knowing everything I know now, the trade itself I don't really hate. Like, if you didn't want to take a guy that you thought, that was in that range, like trading back and getting 2 seconds, not a terrible play, especially in a draft like this, where I think that it was kind of all over the place.
Especially just like with my lead in there, where guys who were rated in the top 3 fell to the lower third of the first round. I think I got my math right on that. But I mean, there were no unanimous picks outside of Shane Wright, who fool on everybody. Really, you'd see like Lekkerimaki would be 8 on someone's list and 26th on another's list, for example. Like, there was no consensus in this, so I'm not surprised we saw what we saw in the first round yesterday. It was certainly exciting, Ian. I mean, yes. Even despite the fact that the Sharks did trade down, there was still a lot of excitement to be had in the first round. But I think that's where the Sharks identified and said, hey, there's a lot of volatility to this year's draft. We very well might find that the players in the 25 to 30 range are just as good as the 11 to 15 range a couple years down the road. So they took that gamble. I'm not skeptical, but I'm closer to skeptical than happy with how this all went. But time will tell for certain with how this draft goes. I don't know, Ian. Were you were pretty happy with the trade overall? I mean, I
think the trade was I don't mind the trade so much. What they did with the picks is where I start having the problem. I think it was a good play. Look, you could have traded back to 27 and still picked up a guy like Brad Lambert. Yeah. Right? So I mean, I don't mind the trade in that perspective. It's just, what did the Sharks do with it? And here's the thing, like, I have been a big booster of Doug Wilson Jr. since he's taken over the drafting. Maybe I'm just like, I don't know if Doug Wilson Jr. is like my new James Reimer, where I'm just so scarred by previous things that I'm just like, no, this has to be good forever. I don't know if I'm there right now.
I haven't been as bullish on Doug Wilson Jr. as I think everybody on Tealtown USA has been. I don't dislike Doug Wilson Jr. Heck, I've never met the guy. How can I dislike someone that I never met? Unless you're like Sean Avery or Steve Ott or someone like that. But Maxime Lapierre. But I digress. This year's draft class for the Sharks, I think, is a bit tough to stomach, but I mean, just based off the very brief overview that I got before coming on the air here, I know that you mentioned whelmed, and I definitely am whelmed. In fact, when the Sharks drafted Bystedt in the first round last night, I had no reaction. I legitimately just sat there like, moving on. Like, I wasn't excited. I wasn't mad. I just sat there and blinked maybe once. Like it was weird. And so for that reaction was underwhelming to me, because I did have 5 players that I identified before the draft. In Kemmel, you guys know, everyone who follows me on Twitter knows I've been a big Joachim Kemmel guy all year. Kemmel, Lekkerimaki, McGroarty was the guy I thought the Sharks for sure were going to take at 11, and that didn't happen. Nazar and Connor Geekie. I thought all of them would have been great picks at 11. Picking up 3 picks was good in for quantity's sake, because the Barracuda got 6 new guys coming in, and obviously no one from the draft is going to the Barracuda right away, but you're going to need to get that snowball rolling here of prospects coming in, especially for a team on the rebuild. But you need some quality here. Yeah. And I don't feel any better. In fact, I almost feel a little bit worse about the quality, the overall total quality of the prospect pool here.
Yeah, I was really excited for this thing. I was like, for a lot of reasons, right? Like, obviously, I was gonna run point this weekend, which I never do. Like, like behind the scenes, I'm not the run point guy. I'm the guy that shows up 5 minutes before the stream and talks for an hour or whatever they need me to talk for. I'm not the run point guy. So knowing that I was going to kind of run point and kind of do everything this weekend, like not everything, like obviously other people helped, and I don't want to take away from other contributions. Like AJ in the chat last night, super helpful. Mark soldiering on for that 4.5 hours, awesome, right? Like I'm not trying to say I did this alone, but like I was, running the show. I was running our Twitter account, like just stuff like that, and to have to do all of that, I was really excited because I thought this was going to be like, I'm like, oh, they're picking 11th. This is going to be amazing. The future's, we're going to get a good look at what the future looks like. And I'm just, I'm with you. I'm not excited for the future anymore.
It's more exciting when you're a Montreal fan and you see that Slavkovsky goes first overall. Whoa. I mean, not the biggest surprise, but it's still, nevertheless, it is a surprise. And Romanov getting traded and Doc coming in and stuff like that. Like, if we were a Montreal Canadiens podcast, which I am actually wearing my lone Montreal shirt, and no, I'm not a Montreal fan, I just like the shirt, then I'm sure it would have been super lively and you would have had a 12-hour podcast. So at least you got to go to bed after only 4.
That's true.
But let's get into
we got to get down to business here. All right, so obviously the first pick, like you said, it was Filip Bystedt. Central Scouting had him ranked 17th overall for European skaters, not including Central Scouting's rankings. He was on 10 different lists. His average ranking was 47. His highest ranking was Recruit Scouting, which had him at 34, and his lowest rating was Elite Prospects, which had him at 70. For those that have been around us for a while, we're big fans of the future considerations draft guide. So I got a couple snippets from there. They had him ranked at 35. They said he's impressively skilled for a player of his size with good hands and hockey sense, but not overly physical for a player his size. Needs to work on maintaining the puck and protecting it better when carrying it. Kevin, when you hear that, I have a name for you, and I want to get your reaction.
All right. I have a name too, so I want to hear yours.
Maxim Letunov.
Oh, I was at least going with Michael Hanzus. Max Letunov, that's a pretty interesting comparison there, because he's a player, slender build, but
a lot more slender than our guy here. Let me get you the thing. Like, this dude is 6'4", 205, 18, which is scary. Shoots left, plays center. He played for Linkoping in the Swedish Hockey League. Split time between, obviously, like SHL, they split time between their junior leagues and their main league. Junior league.
And let me just jump in real quick for those of you who are, we've brought this up in years past, but a lot of junior players, especially in Sweden and some of the other European leagues, will split time because teams are allowed to dress 20 skaters as opposed to 18 in North America. So a lot of times you'll see a couple of players pull double duty, but they'll never even see a shift in the game. They're there for emergency purposes only, or they might see a power play shift or a fifth line shift kind of thing. So their ice time might be under 3 minutes for the game. And so when you see someone like Bystedt with no points in 11 games, I believe it was, in the top tier, he might have not even seen 11 minutes of ice time in that. So don't put any stock in that. Look at his junior stats. That's really
and that's what I'm going to lead off right now with the J20 team. He had 40 games played, 16 goals, 33 assists, 49 points, 40 penalty minutes, and was a plus 23. He also played in the U20 World Junior, U18 World Junior for Sweden. 6 games, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points, and 2 penalty minutes, and a -3. Again, like, I don't hate this pick. I don't love it.
I don't either. I don't either. I just didn't have much of a reaction to it.
Yeah, but I don't super hate it. And and maybe this is just copium, like massive amounts of copium on my part, but I'm like, maybe this is Josh Norris, because scouts seem really split on him. Some people are really high on him. Like, I thought Corey Pronman was pretty positive on him, especially if he actualizes to what his potential is. So I feel like there's a lot of there seems to be a lot of split on this player as far as scouting goes. So I'm curious to see how this one pans out. Now, were there better players available? Yes. Like, I'm not, like, if you would have traded back to 27 and taken a guy like who admittedly has a lot of red flags in Brad Lambert, like, what a steal. What a steal. You pick up absolutely. 2 picks, and then you still able to take that type of player. But obviously the Sharks identified this player and they like it. A little bit of a reach. But I don't hate it as much as others seem to. I'm a little more willing to let this play out.
I'm willing to let it play out in that, maybe this is a player who could be there 57, and I'm just throwing an arbitrary number out there, right. 57, for example. But I think that again, the volatility in the draft. Gen X last night on Twitter and I were having a little bit of a chat on Twitter on there, and he was saying, when you're putting in this much effort, meaning the scouts, when the scouts are putting in this much effort, go with the guy that you want to take.
For sure.
Don't worry about the draft position if it's in the ballpark. And when there's a lot of volatility and randomness to, guys could go anywhere, just take the guy that you want. If you think you can trade down, this is my part because Gen X didn't agree. If you think you can trade down and still get your guy, go for it, especially when you're the Sharks and you're rebuilding, add some picks. The Sharks got 27, 34, and 45 out of one pick, for example. Take the guy you want. The Sharks clearly wanted this player. I still think the Sharks traded down from 11 because they were eyeing someone else who got drafted ahead of them. And I think it's the Casper from Detroit. That's just my hunch. I feel like that's the guy the Sharks were after. And the Red Wings took the guy they wanted and drafted him ahead of the Sharks. Again, no inside info. It's just my opinion there. So I think they said, okay, well, we've identified a player in this range if we traded down, which the Sharks did, and they went with Bystedt. I don't hate this pick at all. I would like to see more upside. Linus Karlsson 2 years ago, not our favorite pick, but he really blew up over the next couple of years in Sweden playing for Örebro. So who's to say that Bystedt can't do the same thing for Linköping? I've always been a big fan of the Linköping development program there in Sweden. Not as much as Skellefteå, but I think Linköping brings quality professionals into hockey here, and I'm excited to see what Bystedt does, and then later down the line, Havelit as well.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the second round, obviously after yesterday, a little bit kind of like, I'm not sure what this draft's going to be. 34th overall pick in the second round, they drafted Cameron Lund. Cameron Lund was ranked by NHL Central Scouting 40th among North American skaters. He was ranked on 10 lists with an average ranking of 70. His highest ranking was from Bob McKenzie, who had him at 43. His lowest ranking was at Future Considerations, which had him all the way down at 131. Another incredibly polarizing prospect. Cameron Lund is a player who plays for the Green Bay Gamblers in the USHL. He played 62 games, had 25 goals, 25 assists, 50 points, 49 penalty minutes, and was a -22. He is a 6'2", 192-pound right shot center, obviously from the US. I am trying to get comments up in the chat, pull them up as I can. If we don't stop and go through all of them, I apologize. We got a lot to get through, and I've done a lot of talking.
Yeah, we don't want to turn this into another 4.5 hour show, but we are gonna try and get to your comments. Like Tony and Jack, for example, you guys killing it in the comments right now, and we'll try and get to some of what you said because I agree with some of what you said there.
Yeah. So again, I think whelmed.
Don as well. Sorry.
Yes, Don as well. Yes, whelmed.
Yeah. I almost wonder, with the Sharks drafting Eklund last year and Bystedt with the first pick and Havelid with the third pick, I think. You almost wonder if Cameron Lund, they thought they were drafting another Swede with the last name of Lund, and then realized he's actually from Green Bay. This was a weird pick because I thought for sure this had Ryan Chesley written all over it. This was a draft for sure that after the first round, I was like, I'm going to throw my hands in the air. There's no use doing a lot of preparation because guys are going all over the place. So I'm not familiar with Cameron Lund. I think with Bystedt, they addressed a size issue. With Cameron Lund, it was kind of more of the same.
Yeah. Let me give you some
yeah, get some stats in there because he's definitely not the same type of center as Bystedt.
No, strength and skating ability are his two big pluses. He can change directions quickly and is a lot for defenders to handle when he hits full speed. Now, the question marks come with his decision making. He often will send passes to nowhere under pressure, or often will waste too much time before getting a shot off. So the way I see it, like it looks like he's a pretty raw prospect. By raw, I mean like there's he's got a lot of raw ability, but the tool set isn't totally there yet, and you have to kind of develop that. But raw prospects aren't the end of the world. I said this on the show last night with Mark. Like a guy like Keandre Miller was incredibly raw when he was drafted.
Definitely.
So you can definitely develop that into a decent tool set. It's just the question is, the physical tools are there, but will he do all the other? Will he be able to put the rest of his game together in order to be an NHLer?
Yeah, and with Cameron Lund, offense is the name of his game, and being a USHL player, right?
Yep.
Yeah. USHL players, and this is kind of alluding to what Tony said in our chat here. Please keep the comments coming, everyone. I'm not a big fan of USHL draft picks, especially high draft picks, because they have the biggest tendency to fall off the map. I have heard some questions about Lund's engine, Lund's desire when he's out on the ice. But at the same time, someone on, I believe it was ESPN's broadcast, because I was kind of switching between Sportsnet and ESPN. Please come back, TSN. Please, please, please. They were saying when you're drafting USHL players, you're going for the most skill available. So if someone's not playing defense, who's an offensive-minded player, who cares? They can develop that in juniors. They can develop that as a pro. They'll learn that aspect. Like, you want the biggest raw ability, and that's what the Sharks got with Lund. I really thought after going with the center at 27 with Bystedt, I thought it was defenseman all the way, and I thought it had Ryan Chesley written all over it. Or even Luke, or Lane, not Luke. I don't remember his last name now. I think he went around 40 or so. But there was another offensive-minded D-man there available that I thought the Sharks could have taken there. I thought they would go D for sure on that second pick. But
Ash in the chat, just it seems like the scouts wanted projects this year. Lots of players that are in the pipeline are going to be itching for spots in the next few years. So at least a lot of these guys can play a few years in college. And Cameron Lund is a Northeastern commit, so he will be playing in the NCAA next year.
Lane Hudson, thank you, yes. Jack. I like Colin's message in the chat. Sleepy Mofo said, so they got Scott Reedy all over again. Yeah, actually, this pick does remind me a lot of Scott Reedy. So good point there, Colin.
Yeah, again, like I just feel like, it's one of those things where like I'm whelmed. Like if it's a swing that hits, like it's going to be great. But I just feel like, I don't know, this is a little too boomer busty for me.
It is, especially given that they trading down and then going boom or bust. That I don't know. I mean, the Sharks need some boom for sure.
They desperately need some boom.
Right now they can't afford bust. I don't think they should just go with safe picks. I think Bystedt's a pretty safe pick, pretty much. But I think this is a player that the Sharks could have drafted in the third round, but they obviously didn't think so. And as I already said, take the guy that you want.
Yeah. So the Sharks next would go to pick number 45. I really like this pick. This is maybe my favorite pick
Me
of this
too.
draft class. Matthias Havelid from Sweden, also from Linköping. Is that how I properly say that?
Linköping, but Linköping works too.
Okay. And again, we'll just give you some stats from his J20. He played 29 games in the J20 league, 10 goals, 9 assists, 19 points, 2 penalty minutes, plus 16. He played also for Sweden in the U18 World Juniors, 6 games, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points, 0 penalty minutes, and a plus 4. Going back to my notes here. Oh, I'll give you his... he's a little bit smaller, obviously, guy, 5'10", 172, so not the biggest guy, even though like size worship seemed to be the theme of this draft. What do we have here for him?
I think part of that is because the last couple of drafts, we've seen a lot of praise towards the undersized players, or the quote-unquote undersized players. So this was kind of a rebound where teams wanted some size, some physicality again to combat. Because the last 2 years especially, the common theme is this player skates well, this player skates well, this player. And so you got to have some kind of balance there. And I think that's why teams went a little bit bigger this year with the draft. But I'm super excited about the Matthias Havelid pick.
Yeah. I like this pick. Like it's the Sharks always do this. Like they always have this pick and we're like, well, if you took this guy at, 34 and then took, if you switch those picks around, I'm a little less annoyed with you. Central Scouting had him as 19th ranked among European skaters. He was on 11 lists. Average rank was about 34. Schmott Scouting was the highest on him at 27. Puck Authority was the lowest on him at 44. So again, future considerations had him ranked at 42. Undersized, smooth skating defenseman with the capabilities to be a dynamic blue liner at the NHL level. Good skater, has great vision, makes good decisions with the puck in the offensive zone, using both his shot and passing ability to make plays. Concerns on the defensive end of his game. While he's got good gap control, he's not going to muscle anyone off the puck, loses a lot of 50-50 battles along the boards.
Yeah. And I, before coming on here, I actually thought I had the perfect comparison for who Matthias Havelid would become, and I have lost it. I've always lost it, right? But I can't remember. I'm sure it'll come back to me. So, but Matthias Havelid is a player who I always, me, I like my Swedish players. But I also like players who I've heard a little bit about in advance of the draft, because that's usually a good sign. So when the Sharks drafted Havelid at 45, and I said, oh, it's one of the only players that I'm familiar with before I do my post-draft analysis and all that. Like, that's a good sign right there for me. Definitely undersized. I mean, we talked a few weeks ago about how if the Sharks were in need of a 5'9", 165-pound defenseman, I'm still available. But they obviously filled that need with Matthias Havelid, so I guess I'm without a contract. But Havelid, slick skating defenseman. Honestly, he reminds me of his dad, of the video that I've seen. I think I saw him a couple of times, or once or twice in a U18 tournament for Sweden, something along those lines. I know I've seen him somewhere. But he actually does remind me of his dad, and I was a big fan of his dad when he played for the Ducks and a little bit for the Thrashers there. So smooth skating, smart. You have to be smart when you're undersized like that. You have to counterbalance the fact that you're not going to shove anyone around. The only problem I think I have with this pick is I think what the Sharks truly needed in this draft, it was virtually impossible, was a David Jiricek.
Yeah.
A big physical defensive defenseman who's going to be a top pair defensive defenseman. Sharks weren't going to be able to move up and get that player with the assets that they have. So Havelid definitely doesn't address that need. But still, the Sharks need everything. Let's be honest. So I'm excited for this pick. He's probably he probably won't be coming over to North America anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. But again, Linköping has a really good development program, and I'm excited to see him develop here. He reminds me a lot of Sami Vatanen. And in fact, I even saw that was the player. It was Sami Vatanen who I thought of. I thought at worst,
Mm-hmm.
he's a Jacob Bryson of Buffalo, who Bryson's a pretty steady defensive defenseman,
Right.
but he's 5'8", I think. And the offense isn't quite there. I think Havelit has more offense than Bryson, so he probably falls somewhere in between. But I think the Sharks definitely have an NHL defenseman in Matthias Havelit. I just don't know his ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, like, if everything goes the way this is definitely the pick that I am the most excited about. This is definitely someone I'm going to be looking forward to following to see how they play over with Linköping this year. Again, like, this is where I kind of like turn back. I'm like, okay, Doug Wilson Jr. is back. We're good now.
Now, I want to talk about who the Sharks didn't draft. Mark and I were absolutely on the same page on this. We both wanted Adam Sikora.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the Sharks were going to draft a defenseman at 34 and then draft someone like Adam Sikora at 45. So that also doesn't make me feel great about the Cameron Lund draft selection, even though I think Lund probably does have a higher ceiling than Sikora. But I really liked what I saw from Sikora playing for Slovakia this year. And, the Sharks like what you like.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's the same way. So that also kind of soured me there on that Cameron Lund pick. But Havelit, I like that one.
All right. With the 76th overall pick, the Sharks took Michael Fisher, who is a 6'2", 198-pound right shooting defenseman playing for St. Mark's School, U.S. high school program, also committed to Northeastern. We have to talk about high school numbers. 28 games played, 13 goals, 37 assists, 50 points. No idea on penalty minutes or plus minus. The problem with high school, and I don't like how much they went to the high school well here, is that the quality of competition is all over the place. So it's really hard to gauge what you're getting in a high school player.
Yeah. I think the only high school player who I actually felt really good about over the last many years was Jack Rathbone. Every other person, if someone tried to sell me on a USHL player, I'd say, talk to me in 2 years when I've at least seen them play a year in college and figure out where they fall on the bigger spectrum. USHL, that one's off my radar, Ian. And I don't trust those. I trust Q stats more than I trust USHL numbers. So.
Yeah. Obviously, he was now this guy was ranked 52 on North American Skaters by Central Scouting. He was on 8 different rankings. His average ranking was 80, so not terrible. Not a terrible pick where the Sharks took him. Ranked highest by Elite Prospects. They had him at about 42. His lowest ranking was Draft Prospects Hockey, which had him at about 112.
Okay.
So again, all over the place. But again, like high school players, it's so hard to know what you're getting. And
he's
a
bigger defenseman, right?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I just feel like this has never worked out for the Sharks. Anytime they've ever drafted at a high school, I don't. Has this ever worked out?
Man, I can't name one.
Neither can I.
And it's not just a Sharks thing. Again, this is league wide. USHL players.
This is not even USHL. This is high school. This is not even the USHL.
Oh, you're right. It's USHS. So yeah, you're right.
Like, so I got nothing here, man.
No, and so here's obviously we want every pick to work out.
For sure. It makes our job easier.
Say this. To me, when I see defensive defensemen with not a whole lot of a scouting report for them, and it's in the middle round. Boy, the Sharks do this a lot in the middle rounds, and it drives me nuts. Mike Robinson, Adam Shaneborn, you know, Michael Fisher, defensive defenseman, middle round. That says to me
198.
That says to me fourth pair AHL defenseman. Now, I just talked about how the Sharks need defensive defensemen and they need that stalwart player, and anyone third round and below might just turn into Jake Middleton's not a stalwart defensive defenseman, but we saw the progress that Jake Middleton had this year for the Sharks, and I would like to think that Michael Fisher turns into that. But this is definitely you're going to have to prove something to me before I'm going to get over my preconceived notions about this pick.
Here's the thing. Now, the one thing that I always do when it comes to USHL players, when it comes to players that are playing US high school, where are they going to college? It's going Northeastern. Like, there are certain programs where I will give you a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt depending on which program you're going into, right? Northeastern's got a pretty damn good program.
Yes.
Like there's like a few schools, like there's some schools that I hold in really high regard. North Dakota, Denver, Michigan, Minnesota, Northeastern. Like, you know what I mean?
It's funny that you brought those all up. Because whenever I see a high school player or a USHL player get drafted, what I always put in my notes is, where are they going? And it's totally true. The colleges you just mentioned, those players go higher up on my list because of where they're going.
Right.
If it's Quinnipiac, for example, or even Omaha, Nebraska, they have a pretty good program. Miami of Ohio has a pretty good program. But when you're getting like the Division III college,
right?
For example, that's where I'm like, I don't even know if I want to rank you. And so at least Fisher is going to Northeastern here, where who knows? I mean, Mike Callahan was a player for the Coyotes, and I think he's in the Bruins organization now. But Mike Callahan was a defenseman who I thought, yeah, maybe, he might turn out. And he had a pretty good college career, and he captained his team. I can't remember which team it was, but he captained his college team. So Michael Fisher might eventually turn into something. Callahan might be on that border, but just throwing that out there. Shoeshine kind of brought up something we've been talking about throughout the show so far, which is it's hard to grade a draft class when there was no consensus among the scouts, and completely agree. So Michael Fisher is definitely the type of pick where you write it down and you wait and see. Michael Fisher, though, the Sharks the Sharks can check off the box for players of the same name because he's Mike Fisher.
Yep.
We saw a Jack Hughes get drafted today. We saw an Elias Pettersson drafted today. And there was one other Jeremy Langlois. Former Barracuda player, Jeremy Langlois. And now there's another Jeremy Langlois who was drafted today. So we saw a lot of repeat names, and the Sharks can mark that off that we have Mike Fisher.
It's true.
We want our overtime goal back, Mike Fisher. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Tony asking in chat, these are all 18-year-olds. Yeah, they're all 17, 18. The Sharks did not dip into any of the overage players this draft. So that is something that we can confirm.
Can we, before we move on, can you talk about Jack Olson's comment about Russian players and
yeah, so me and Mark talked a little bit about this yesterday about like what was going to happen with some of the Russian players, obviously, with teams probably being a little afraid to draft them, obviously. I think a guy like Yurov went a lot lower than he would have if the world was a sane and normal place. And like last night, I'm not going to get too into the weeds about the politics of it, but if you want to escape your KHL team and your owner of your KHL team does not want you to go, there's a chance he might call his buddy Vladimir Putin and have you sent to Siberia for military service.
You think that? Oh, geez. Oh, yeah. That's I don't know that I want to go down that path, other than the best place that Ivan Miroshnichenko could have been drafted was the Washington
That's
Capitals.
yeah. We did say that
Because
last
it
night.
takes one Alex Ovechkin phone call and he's set for
And he's
life.
set free. Yeah. For those that don't know, there's a lot of talk of Kirill Kaprizov possibly having to do military service right now. The Flyers wanted to bring over one of their goalie prospects, and he got sent to somewhere. Just it's scary stuff. It's weird. It's weird Cold War stuff that honestly I thought we were gonna leave in the the mid '90s. So I don't know. It is what it is.
It's crazy. All right, let's move on to when do the RFAs have to sign by real quick by PJ? So Wednesday when UFA begins?
I believe so.
So I believe Monday
QOs
probably
have to go
early.
up?
Yeah, I believe it'll have to be like Monday noon Eastern type of thing.
Let me see if it's on my important summer dates.
Yeah.
Document.
I'm excited because Wednesday is my work from home day this week. So unlike day 2 of the draft, I will actually know what's going on live with the free agency silly season. So if we end up having a show there, I'll be a little bit more prepared. But I like how the show's going so far. And for those of you who are new, thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe if you like it and tell a friend. We always love chatting with you
absolutely
as we do amongst ourselves. We've got Discord as well.
Yeah.
Skylar Greenberg, who's in our chat here right now, he's commonly talking as well as like a tiger. So the more the merrier,
All right. Yeah, we'll definitely get to Luke Kunin. And yeah,
we should get to that.
We will get there. As soon as we finish the draft, we will talk about Luke Kunin, and we'll kind of give some broad thoughts on the NHL draft. Okay, so with the 108th pick overall in the 4th round, the Sharks immediately lost me again. Like my mood just completely.
Is it because you didn't know how to pronounce his last name, or
no? This is what. Okay, so Mason Beaupitt is a Canadian 6'5", 188-pound goaltender who catches with his left hand. He is a goaltender for the Spokane Chiefs of the Western Hockey League. In 49 games, he had an amazing goals against average of 3.63, a save percentage of .893, one shutout though, so hey, that's good, and a record of 20, 22, and 4. Now, admittedly, I don't know how bad Spokane were this year, although they were a playoff team.
Yeah, I don't know either, but the first thing I can say to the stats is Ben Goodrow had a horrible statistical season the previous year and bounced back in a big way, and fans are really excited about him now.
Team.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It was an awful team.
Yeah.
We don't know how bad Spokane was.
Yeah, I didn't do my homework here. And he did have a decent season in the shortened season the year before.
Yeah.
This, to me, though, this is Zachary Emond all over again.
We already have one of those.
It's a big... It's size worship. It's goalie size worship.
It is. I read something, the only note that I saw about it, I don't even know if it's Bo P or Bo Pitt.
I don't
know. In any event, the only thing that I saw about him was he models his game after Carey Price and Roberto Luongo, who's his hero, and I guess he met him this weekend.
Which is awesome.
I'm like, that's great. I modeled my game after Mike Bossy. Well, look where I'm at,
Yeah. Okay, so he was only ranked on 4 lists. He was ranked 5 among North American goalies by Central Scouting. He was on 4 lists. His average ranking was about 172. His highest ranking was 143, I think, by Recruit Hockey, and his lowest was 197 by Future Considerations. So this is a little bit what we know about him. He's got good east-west mobility in the butterfly and takes up a lot of the net with his size alone because he's huge. But he has a tendency to go down too early, which leads to a lot of panic plays where he's kind of just sprawled out and flailing around like Dominic Hasek without the saves.
I like that the Sharks went for a goalie here, because I do think the Sharks needed to try and add to the goaltending. Because until we are 100% comfortable with the goaltending, the Sharks should always add a goalie every year in the draft. This was the pick. I don't know a lot about him.
Yeah.
So it's tough. But I feel a little bit better than Zach Amon. Like, I don't want to throw in the thunderstorm that you did. But yeah, I don't know. The fact that it is the Western Hockey League, and he's giving up this type of offense is troubling for me, because it is a more defensive league.
So the Spokane Chiefs, just to go, in the Western Conference, they finished 7th. Obviously, Western, look at both conferences, I believe, are 10 teams per conference. So, or 10 in the 10 in the West, 12 in the East. They finished 7th in the West. They had a record of 24, 39, and 4. So they finished 7th in the playoff with a losing record.
So this is one of those AHL Pacific Division, everybody but the Barracuda makes the playoffs kind of situation. Got it.
Yeah, and they got bounced by the Kamloops Blazers, the second-seeded Kamloops Blazers in 4.
All right. Did he play in the playoffs? I think that's also a telling.
He did.
He did play in the playoffs. So so they didn't.
So the it's not much better. He has 2 games played in the playoffs. His record was 0-1-0, so he looks like he must have started a game, or they were leading when he went in to get the loss. He had, again, it's hard, right? Because if you go in relief and you get lit up, like it hurts your numbers so badly.
You're supposed to be making us feel better about this.
His goals against average was a sparkling 6.86. But again, if you go into a game late and get lit up, that destroys your GAA. That's just how GAA works. His save percentage was 8.46.
Does Spokane Chiefs have a new logo?
No, the Warriors do.
Oh, got it. Uriel, we'll come back to your comment in a little bit. I like that question.
What's the question?
Come back.
What was the question? What's the question?
Oh, well, he asked, what big name do you guys hope Mike Greer can pull? And I think that's once we get through the draft, we can talk about that, because I think it's a good question there.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. All right, so
no, Skylar, I don't hate Swedish rookie. I love Swedish players. It's just that I don't know if I like these Swedish players, except for Havelit.
Yeah, I love that. I really like that Havelit pick. All right, so the 5th round, 140th overall, Jake Furlong, Canadian, 6'1", 190-pound left shooting defenseman, plays for the Halifax Mooseheads in the QMJHL, 67 games, 4 goals, 38 assists, 20 for 42 points, 16 penalty minutes, and plus 22. In the playoffs, 5 games, 4 assists for 4 points, 2 penalty minutes, -5. Let's see, what do we have here?
Look, with Jake Furlong here, so this was the point, one of the only points of the draft that I was able to interrupt my work day, and I saw the Sharks were about to pick at 138, and they obviously traded down, because next thing I know, I'm like working on my computer and I see the Columbus logo appear, and I'm like, I finally get to watch the draft, and the Sharks trade the friggin' pick. But I saw they traded down 2 spots, and I would guess they acquired a 7th. Do you recall that?
I didn't write that down.
Okay. I mean, again, this is all a matter of just not being able to watch the draft live, as I wasn't. But so they got Furlong, and Furlong's another defenseman that I got really nothing up on. It seems like he's a pretty offensive-minded defenseman, which status quo for the Q. But I think what I am excited about, I've mentioned a couple years ago, maybe it was the Julius Bergman pick. So this was several years ago when on NHL Network they go to highlight Julius Bergman and they have nothing to say. That is the worst thing, especially for a second round pick as Bergman was. When you have nothing to say, that's awful. So when I'm sitting there at my computer and they say, let's talk about Jake Furlong. And I'm like, a fifth rounder being talked about, being highlighted. That's already a good sign. So again, I don't know a whole lot about Jake Furlong other than he seems to be pretty mobile. He's a very average size and offensive minded. You mentioned he had 4 points in 5 playoff games. So that's a positive. That plus minus not so much. But a project defenseman, as someone else in the chat already mentioned, a lot of project players here.
And the 138 got traded to Columbus for a 5th in next year's draft.
Oh, okay. So they already had 140. Yeah. Again, watching the draft and trying to work, pretty hard.
So again, a theme for this draft is, good skating. A lot of these prospects are pretty decent skaters, which seems to be like the Doug Wilson Jr. motif. Good passing, good skating, especially defensively to, a good gap control, take smart routes to the puck. Again, not overly physical though. So a lot of size for guys that aren't super physical. But, And
that I think might possibly be why I'm less thrilled about the draft class than I'd like to be, is because I do think that the Sharks just need some more overall physicality. And when we get into the Luke Kunin trade, for example, someone, I think it was Mike Powell on Twitter, was saying, yeah, but Kunin's way more physical than John Leonard is, and that's what Mike Greer is identifying as a big need. And I agree with that. But then you go out and you don't acquire any physical players that we are aware of in this draft class. And
I think the thing too that you have to remember is, obviously, if you're drafting a player today, you're not drafting them for tomorrow, literally tomorrow, right? You're drafting them for down the road. So,
and players develop. I mean, Adam Raska was drafted as a physical forward, so that's uncommon. But look at the number of, for the lack of a better term, goons in the NHL. They weren't drafted to be goons, unless you're Zach Kassian. They were drafted to be quality players, like a Tom Wilson. Even a Nazem Kadri's got some edge to him, and always has. But players will carve a niche out one or the other. So that also could be why the Sharks say, you know what, physicality will naturally develop over time. So I just like to see a little bit more versatility out of the draft class. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, so we get into the 6th round, and now we're just swinging for the fences. Joey Moldoni, American, 5'11", 154 pounds, tiny. Right shot, right winger. Again, another high school player. A ton of points, but again, high school. Quality of competition. 56 games played, 57 goals, 40 assists, 97 points. He did play a couple games with Des Moines in the USHL. He played 3 games, had a goal and assist, and 2 points, and was -3. So again, another smaller player, offensive. Let me see if I have anything here. Obviously, because of his size, a lot of questions with his strength. NHL scouting did have him at 164 for North American skaters.
All right, so the Sharks drafted right around where Central Scouting had him, or NHL Scouting, had him. So, you can't fault that too much. I have nothing about this
Same.
pick other than that he's very light.
Yes.
I really have not, and this goes back to the Michael Fisher. He's in USHS, so he's playing high school. One of the hardest leagues.
And this is another USHS player.
Yeah, one of the hardest systems to grade on. I mean, we're not even done with it. That's the crazy thing. We still have another pick who it's like, yeah, the stats are great, 100 points in 50 games ish, but
committed to the University of Connecticut.
Yeah, UConn. I guess it's a good thing that he's not going to the basketball program at 154 pounds, because that wouldn't work out. Yeah, UConn's a decent program. I think, look at John Leonard. I mean, UMass has been on the map for a while, but like you hope it's like John Leonard, who was traded today, where John Leonard went into UMass with not a whole lot to work around him. And John Leonard himself was a 6th or 7th round pick. So he made the most of his situation. And so with Joey Moldoni, you hope that maybe he's a guy who just says, yeah, UConn's all right. I'm going to make them better. I'm going to be the guy to make them better and put them on the map. So...
Yeah, 195, Eli Barnett, Canadian, 6'6", 220 pounds. Right shot defenseman, plays for the Vancouver Grizzlies in the BCHL. 53 games played, 3 goals, 10 assists, 13 points, 40 penalty minutes. The BCHL, like, I think, and again, this is 7th round pick, so not a big deal, but I think you'd want to see a few more points in the BCHL.
Definitely. This is another pick. Like I miss the days when the Sharks would draft someone in the 7th round and I go, oh, that guy, oh, that's a great pick. Like I'm not really there. I'm trying to think of the rush. I keep looking over on the side because I'm trying to pull up the name of the Russian draft pick we had last year, because to me this almost seems like a fallback in case the Russian pick doesn't work out. Like, he's got size. He seems to be mobile enough for his size. But outside of that, BCHL, I have to throw my hands up in the air and say the scouts should know what they're doing, right?
Yeah, and again, not much other than he's huge. He's a monster. He is going to the University of Vermont. And with the final pick in the draft, the Sharks at 217 took Reese Laubach, a San Jose native, 6 foot, 168 pounds, right shooting center. Again, plays for North Star Christian Academy in the NAPHL. You know, it is what it is, man.
He's a junior Shark. He's San Jose born.
Yep.
Kashnikov, that's it. Thank you, Ike.
Yeah, like, which I think is really cool, right? Like, to go full circle like that and come back into the Sharks. I think that's really cool.
Oh, it is. How many years have the Sharks just organizationally been saying, especially Doug Wilson was saying, I can't wait for the day that a junior Shark joins the Sharks and plays in the NHL. Yeah. So we're obviously a long way away from the NHL, but this is probably the most exciting, if for nothing else, just because the feel good story. For me, the most exciting pick outside of Havok.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and so he's a couple years away from college. He's going to be playing in Youngstown, the Youngstown Phantoms, I want to say. That's
one of the only USHL programs that I'm like moderately familiar with, and they're a damn good program.
Yeah, so he's going to be playing there, and then he is going to the University of Minnesota. Let me go figure that out again. I had it up.
I want to say Minnesota Mankato.
Yes, Minnesota Mankato. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So, but Reese Laubach, San Jose born. His hero is Joe Pavelski. Why wouldn't it be? and tries to model his game after that. So
He says he models his name after Jonathan Toews.
Okay, no problem with that either. But yeah, I outside of like the numbers and the feel good story, the only thing I got is he related to Storm Chaser Tony Laubach? Because I don't know, maybe they can chase Sharknadoes together or something. I don't know, but still really cool though. He'll definitely have bring a little bit of excitement and enthusiasm to the team he grew up watching, and definitely going to be one to watch. It's just it's almost like there's going to be a shadow on him, kind of like how Mike Greer. I did not get to share my thoughts about Mike Greer being named general manager, but I think of the candidates that the Sharks hired, it's the one I'm most comfortable with, the one that had the most experience, even though he isn't fully experienced. But Mike Greer is going to have that forever connotation of being the first black GM. Yeah. And so now he's going to have to prove that he can be a quality GM and wasn't picked because he. And I'm certainly not saying that he was picked because he was black, because he was not. I think Jonathan Becker said it perfectly, that he's a quality candidate who happens to be black.
You know what's sad? Like, what really made me sad from that press conference was the fact that he said that he has to do a good job so that other black men will get the chance to general manage. And I'm like, Peter Chiarelli didn't ruin it for white guys.
No. Man, I missed that. And that is very unfortunate. But I do think that, not in that same vein, but I do think there's going to be the extra scrutiny on Mike Greer to perform because he's a black GM, even though that's complete bullshit. There's another E for you right there. That's complete bullshit. But it's nevertheless, he's going to have that extra magnifying glass on him. And I think that with Rhys Laubach, it's the same thing, where he's, Sharks fans still can't stop talking about Matt Tennyson.
Right.
I don't care about Matt Tennyson. So Rhys Laubach, immediately it's going to be that he's a junior Shark, and it is a great story.
It's an amazing story.
But
I felt bad because I'm doing all this stuff, and I didn't clue into the fact because I'm not local, right? So I didn't even clue in, and then I'm trying to scramble to figure out information on the player so I can put it on the Tealtown Twitter account, and then I'm like, oh, he's from San Jose. That's nice.
But he's still going to have that. It's not a target on his back because he's a 7th round pick. What are you going to expect? His hero is Joe Pavelski, but don't expect him to be Joe Pavelski. But still, he's going to have that extra just people watching him and see if he succeeds or fails or whatever. And so I hope he certainly succeeds. I hope it works out. The Sharks have always wanted this, and it's a step towards that. So we'll see what happens. But Youngstown, that's a good next step for him. I like that.
Yeah, and then he moves on after that to the NCAA. So I'm pretty excited for that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think overall, Corey Pronman was actually really generous to the Sharks draft. I just read his thing, and he gave, I think, a B minus.
B. He gave him a solid B. That made me feel a little bit better. And I think, again, Corey Pronman, as with anyone who puts their public thoughts out there, there's going to be people who like him and people who hate him. And so, but the hate is always going to be louder than the praise. And so, take it for what you will. I really like Corey Pronman's insight about players. I think it's something you should. You don't necessarily need to understand it as gospel, just like what we're saying. We're not saying this is what's happening,
right?
We're not saying that. And Corey Pronman's the same way. He's putting his thoughts out there, and I think he's generally more correct than he is wrong, and that's the best you can do. So the fact that he did give the Sharks a B class, I think part of that, we're down on the class the Sharks draft class overall. But the fact that he's still willing to grade it a B says not the greatest draft class this year. So the Sharks tried to make the most of it. Next year's draft class, I think, is going to be a lot better. I like the 2023 class. And when you guys were correcting me about that pick 138 going for a 2023 pick, I'm all for it. And I heard that the Sharks traded a 7th as well. I think I actually happened to be on my phone looking at that at the same time, too. Yeah, so, adding picks for next year, I have no problem with that. That third round pick, though.
Yeah, because it did make me feel a little better, because honestly, like, when I was preparing for this show, I'm like, if I give this draft class a C, I feel like I'm being generous.
I'm the same way. I would give it a D+.
Like,
but that's
give
me.
it I think I settled on a generous C.
Okay.
But I don't know, man. Yeah, to me it's a C class. This is probably for me. And look, at maybe in 2 years, 3 years, I'm gonna come on here and have to eat my hat. But this draft reminded me too much of pre-Doug Wilson Jr. drafts, and it gave me serious pause.
It really did. And with Mike Grier, I mean, generally the GM is going to defer to the advice of the scouts, because that's what they're paid to do. They're paid to go out and watch these players and give their expertise and their best assessment of all the players, as many of the players as they can. And so, especially with Mike Grier coming in and being a new GM, he's going to be extra reliant, more than anyone, about trusting the word of the scouts. But if this draft class falters, this might be the start of heads rolling. And especially with Doug Wilson Sr. being gone, I think that, what I want to say, that safety net is now gone for Doug Wilson Jr. And so it's not to say Doug Wilson Jr.'s all of a sudden we hate him or anything like that. But I do think that this year, if this doesn't work out and next year doesn't work out, you see the scouting staff get completely gutted.
Yeah.
We do know that one scout retired after today. And then, of course, the terrible tragedy of Brian Marchment passing away, which has affected me a lot, actually. That was really bothering me on Wednesday. Just because I did have a couple of personal interactions with Brian Marchment, not just the one on Twitter, but I talked to him occasionally at Barracuda games on the concourse. And so that one hit me pretty hard. But Doug Wilson Jr.'s safety net is gone. And next year being a really good draft class from what we understand.
Yes. If
they don't start hitting some home runs soon, Mike Grier has all the power in the world to say, you know what, time for an overhaul.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like with I want to get some stuff in the chat here too.
Chat is on
fire tonight, and it's hard to keep up. And I want to like kind of address a lot of things, but not like be here all night.
Yeah.
Like the thing here, the thing for me here is like I don't know, like I understand, like, a lot of people, like, obviously when you're the GM, you're the figurehead for whatever happens here. And we're going to talk about the Luke Kunin trade next. And I don't think that is an auspicious start to Mike Grier's GMing.
Right.
But I just, and it's all like, we don't know. No one here knows shit, right? Here in the chat, whatever. We don't know shit. But I don't like how I don't know, and again, I don't know. Did Mike Grier come in and turn things on its side, and that's why we didn't have a good draft class? I don't think so. Like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that Mike Grier would come in and they'd hire a new GM, and then like 2 nights before the draft, they all sit down with a case of Red Bull, like college kids with an assignment due the next day that they had a month to work on, and did all their draft work, and Mike Grier just threw everything they had out and they made a new plan. Like, I don't believe that happened. I think that this draft went the way the scouts and junior right, like I think that it went the way they wanted it to go. Now, for some of us who have been super pumping the tires of Doug Wilson Jr. being one of the only things in the organization that has been worth a damn the last little bit, yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow, to be like, okay, yeah, maybe, maybe Junior fucked this up a little. And we'll find out, like, again, we'll find out in 2-3 years. But we don't know now. I mean, right now it doesn't look great, though. And
no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And so it makes it extra critical for the current...
I kind of lost you, Mike, Kevin. You get really quiet all of a sudden.
Oh,
yeah.
Really? Uh-oh. Well, hopefully that you can hear me a little bit better. But what I was saying was it makes it even more...
Oh, you're back now.
Oh, okay. It makes it even more critical for the last 2 to 3 draft classes to really step up and show that they belong. Guys like Bystedt, Coe, Robbins. I mean, I say this every friggin' show. Gushchin. These players that are coming into the Barracuda, Kashnikov, don't even know where he's going to be because last I heard he doesn't have a junior team and he is AHL eligible. Players like that need to step up because when you get draft classes like this, even if it wasn't necessarily all on the Sharks, maybe it's just a crappy draft class that you try to make the best of. You still want your prospects to put their best foot forward, and it's going to be even more telling here this year and next year to see how all the pieces fall, because the Sharks moved out John Leonard today, who's a player who a lot of people were kind of high on. I was lukewarm too. I think he has a big ceiling, but I just haven't seen enough of him to be emo about him being traded today. But Shemilevsky is there, he's ready. Reedy is there, he's ready. There are some Sharks prospects who are ready to take that next step forward, and if they don't take the ball and run with it, Mike Grier is going to ship them out like John Leonard.
So Luke Kunin got traded to the San Jose Sharks for John Leonard and a 2023 third, which I think is the bone of contention for a lot of Sharks fans. And it's a bone of contention for me as well. I don't like the fact that, like, Luke Kunin is kind of a rugged player. He can score a little bit, but he's not like... If you think Kevin LeBanc spends a lot of time in the penalty box, wait till you see Luke Kunin. Like, I don't know, man. Like, if he's coming in to be, like, I just feel like if he's coming in to be a top 6 solution, that scares me. And if he's coming in to be a bottom 6 solution, then you paid way too much.
Oh, no. I cannot see him getting a top 6 role.
Right? Like, that's the problem.
I think Luke...
That's the problem for me. You gave up a 3rd round pick in an incredibly, theoretically, deep draft, and a prospect. Now John Leonard, I like John Leonard, but with the players coming into the system next year, I don't know where John Leonard fits in San Jose.
Right, exactly.
Right? I don't know where he fits anymore. So if you want to give up on him, that's fine. Okay, that's cool. Like, but to give up on him and then also throw a third in for a guy who likely slots into your third line?
Yeah, see, I posted on Twitter today that I think John Leonard's ceiling is what Luke Kunin is currently producing. And so, in that light, the 3rd round pick added to Leonard basically offsets the eventual trajectory, theoretically, for Leonard. Kunin is already that player. So that's, you give up the 3rd. But I'm with you where Luke Kunin is a guy that the Sharks could have probably gotten from anywhere. Obviously, Mike Grier thinks differently, thinks he's got more untapped upside. Certainly as a former first-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was like 19th or 21st overall or
15th.
somewhere around there, if I remember. 15th, see?
Minnesota.
Like, by Minnesota, yeah. He hasn't realized the expectations that were beset on him at that draft pick. I would like to think it's similar to like a Manny Malhotra, who was a former, I think, 6th overall pick, who was not a good pick for 6th overall, but eventually found his game many years after he was drafted and really stepped up and was an amazing San Jose Shark, and a very good coach now. So maybe Luke Kunin has that kind of trajectory where there's still the untapped upside. I think that's why the Sharks brought him in. But Jay Fresh, I don't know if you follow Jay Fresh hockey, but he listed Luke Kunin as a sub-replacement level player who can score goals. And that's, to me, back to what you were saying, Ian. You're giving up John Leonard and a 3rd-round pick for a sub-replacement level player. That is not a good look if you're a GM trying to put your foot, in the concrete and say, I'm not going to be pushed around.
Yeah.
I think Mike Grier kind of got pushed around a little bit.
Yeah, pending RFA with arbitration rights. I don't think he's not going to come in. Like, maybe he signs his QO. Like, this is one of those situations where maybe he signs the QO and then you probably have to pay him too much. Like, I don't think his number's going to come in at the 2.3 that he was making AAV over the last 2 seasons based on a pretty decent 2019-20 season where he did have a pretty decent season, but it's been pretty much downhill from there. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
I just wanted to say, I worry that the Sharks gave up John Leonard and a 3rd-round pick for a player Nashville wasn't going to qualify as a free agent.
And I did have someone mention that on Twitter, and it's not the worst thought, right? Like, is this a guy you could have signed for $1 million as a league minimum, or maybe $1 million as a UFA after he doesn't get qualified? Yeah, so last season, 82 games played. I mean, that's good because the Sharks could use players that can play 82 games.
Especially last season,
God.
huh?
13 goals, 9 assists, 22 points, minus 11, and a whopping 99 penalty minutes.
Yeah. I mean, again, Mike Grier was looking for more physicality, and organizationally, that's a black hole.
It is. I won't lie.
So there is that, but I don't know. Maybe what was the Zach Kassian trade yesterday? He didn't get traded straight up for a 3rd-round pick, did he?
That's a good question. I didn't have any of that up because I was trying to keep it focused, but no,
I know I'm spitballing here as we do. But I was just because I wonder if, depending on what the return was for Zach Kassian, because I know it was a cap dump for Edmonton, but I wonder if that set the bar a little bit for this Luke Kunin trade. Because Nashville, David Poyle can come at Mike Grier and say, "Hey, we got this kid who's way younger."
It was Zach Kassian. Zach Kassian to the Arizona Coyotes with pick number 29 for pick 32. Pick number 29, a 3rd-round pick in 2024, a 2nd-round pick in 2025 for a 20.
There's way more layers. I knew there was a
32.
3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
There's way more layers. So that's not a comparison. So never mind.
Yeah, I don't like this trade, and I think it's like, obviously Mike Grier is going to come in and he's obviously going to there's going to be time for him to kind of settle into the role, but this is not a great start.
No. And let's this is not a great start, but let's give Mike Grier time. I did want to tweet this the day that he was named GM there on Tuesday, but I was traveling and so I just never got around to it. But Mike Grier can make all the mistakes in the world right now. We don't want him to, obviously, but he can make all the mistakes in the world and still come out fine.
Yeah.
Let's give him time. He's brand new at this position. He's never been a GM at any level. And so there's going to be some kinks here. Just think about when you tried to ride a bicycle right away. You needed the training wheels first and so on. So
yeah, like I'm not trying to say I'm not writing off Mike Grier as a GM. I just think it's not he's just not off to a fantastic start.
Right. No, but I want to put it out there because hockey Twitter can be really, really ice cold and really, really fiery hot, And so I don't want it to be July 15th. Oh God, the Sharks had this mediocre draft class and they haven't signed anyone in free agency. Oh, the sky is falling. Let's, even if that is what happens, let's give Mike Grier some time. I just want to put it out there.
Something Mark said yesterday, though, and I think it is true. Like, when you see all the goalie movement and all the goalie rumors, it's kind of annoying not to see San Jose mentioned in any of it as a team with 3 goalies, NHL goalies right now.
Yeah, especially with like Buffalo, for example. They were sniffing. They thought they had a Matt Murray trade completed until Matt Murray said, "Nah, I don't think so." So yeah, Edmonton's still looking for a goal. I think Edmonton ends up with Jack Campbell. That's my thought there.
That's Edmonton's whole motif. It's like, what Maple Leaf can we sign this year?
But Darcy Kuemper being out there, I think, kind of stymies any trade talk for anyone else, because it's like what we said with Kunin. Is it worth trading for Kunin when maybe he's available in free agency anyway? Sharks seem to think so. Why would you go and trade for Adin Hill when maybe you can just throw some money at Darcy Kuemper and you're okay? So, Dave in the chat. Oh no, I lost it. But it was essentially. There it is. There's no reason to have faith in Luke Kunin. It's kind of like my Michael Fisher draft pick. I don't have a whole lot of faith in that pick, so he's gonna have to prove it until to make me change my mind. Luke Kunin's the same way. Like I don't think this is a gutter trash move by the Sharks. Luke Kunin has a role with the Sharks. I think that's unmistakable. In fact, Luke Kunin probably causes Jonah Gadjevich to go to unrestricted free agency.
Yeah, but if you're spending a third in John Leonard to get Noah Gadjevich replacement, god damn.
Exactly. That's the problem.
This fucking team.
That's why we're down on Luke Kunin here today, everybody.
This fucking team. Yeah, I mean that's the issue I have, right? Like, and look, there's obviously some more dominoes that need to fall. I mean, obviously, Mike Grier in his interview talked about cap flexibility, and that was the one thing he needed the most. And obviously, the Sharks didn't really do much in that regard. I think that obviously Marc-Edouard Vlasic being at the draft table kind of lets you think that he's probably safe from a buyout, and he I'm not going to lie, he probably should be anyway, because that buyout penalty, if you do it right now, is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But I will continue to stand my ground that the Sharks don't need to buy anyone out because they're not a competitive team yet. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Logan Couture. I'm sorry, Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns, the veterans of the team, Marc-Edouard Vlasic, even though that's the one you mentioned as the buyout. I don't see a reason to take a cap penalty when you might eventually become competitive for a team right now that's just not. That's just my stance on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's... And that's the thing, right? Like, and I said this yesterday on the show too. It's like, well, you surprised that like Brent Burns didn't move, and I'm like, not really, because like Brent Burns isn't like, especially yesterday, like it didn't make sense. Like today, maybe you could throw him in a package for whatever to try and or maybe you get a pick that you could take today or whatever, right? But like Brent Burns wasn't going to give you the kind of return that gets you on the board again in the first round yesterday.
Brent Burns' highest value, I mean, again, what was it, 3 years ago when I was on this show saying the Sharks need to trade Brent Burns? So I'm going to continue to hammer that one home. I think Brent Burns' highest value is day 2-3 of the free agency period. Because some teams will miss out on whichever coveted UFA defenseman is out there that I don't even know. And then they say, all right, well, now that we missed out on this player and maybe this player, and Duncan Keith retired today.
Chris Letang resigned in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Maybe now you swing for Brent Burns and hope that he trades waives his no trade clause, unless you're Dallas, and then he just says, yay, all right. Yeah, I don't see Brent Burns going anywhere. He has no reason to, even though I do think the Sharks would be better off for it long term.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I think that the reason why this weekend has been such a bummer for me is because, like, it just doesn't...
Because it's not the weekend. The draft was on fucking Thursday and Friday.
Okay. You do have me there. I think the reason why this is so frustrating for me is because I have less than no expectations for this team this fall. Like, I am not excited for the season to start because this team is going to be ass. Like, I don't think this team is going to be competitive at all. I am looking more forward to covering the Barracuda than I am the San Jose Sharks. And I don't know who's playing defense for the Barracuda next year.
I was going to say, hey, the Barracuda moving into TexUU Arena, and it's going to be sweet. I'll be there at a bunch of games this year, so come by in section 217 and say hello to me. It's good. That's going to be a fun atmosphere. Even if I enjoyed Barracuda games last year when they were dead last in the AHL. They're going to be better than that this year. So you should be excited about covering them, Ian, and I'm looking forward to going, and come on by. It's going to be a cool time.
Yeah, but, like, you know what I mean? So, like, nothing that happened over the last 2 days, like, gave me, like, even, like, oh, well, you know, everything sucked, but, you know, they're going to pick at 11th, and then they didn't pick at 11th, which was fine. Again, I didn't hate the trade. I liked the trade, but then when, you know, you get one player that I'm really excited about, one that I'm okay with, and then another that I'm kind of like, whatever. Like,
I'm not there yet about the trade. I think this is definitely a trade. I said I don't like this trade today, but
no, not the kind of. I mean the picks.
Yeah, no, the 11th overall pick. That's what I mean. I don't see a situation where I'm happy with the Luke Kunin trade. But the 11th overall pick, I wasn't really all that happy yesterday. Again, because the players I mentioned earlier, especially McGroarty, because I thought he'd be a perfect Shark, even though I had Kemmel higher. I had Kemmel 6th on my draft board, just FYI. I think the Sharks could have gotten somebody, but I think the Sharks also look at it as like a Matt Savoy. I think Matt Savoy would have been a dynamite pick at 11. Yep. Like, I'm a huge fan of his brother Carter, who's going to play for Edmonton or Bakersfield next year. And I think Matt Savoy might be even better. He's small. But if the Sharks could have gotten Savoy at 11, and then they traded the pick, I'd be outright pissed. But the fact that a player like that was not there, not surprisingly, that part of it makes me okay, because I don't think the Sharks were going to get a dynamite pick at 11.
Yeah.
But who they got, 27, 34, 45. 45 I'm happy with. But
I love that pick. It's my favorite. It's easily my favorite pick of the draft, and I think without that pick, I'm so kind of whatever on the rest of it. Like I said, I that pick kind of pushed it into the C territory for me, but I acknowledged, like, a C is probably generous.
Yeah. All right, like a tiger, I can't resist. I will try to be as nice as possible on this. Like a tiger. How do I pronounce this? Montana Onyebuchi? Did I say that correctly? You know, he's only been around for a year. But yeah. Montana Onyebuchi, definitely a real AHL player right there. Definitely going to get in a lot of fights
Yeah,
next year.
Garrett Larson, if Savoy or Korchinski are there at 11, the Sharks don't trade down. Maybe. We don't know. Well, like, that's the thing. We can speculate till we're blue in the face, but I feel like,
Yeah.
who knows?
The one nice thing last year, the Sharks outright said we were planning on drafting Jesper Wallstedt, and then Eklund was still available. So it's like, thank you for that information. We're not going to get information about who the Sharks might have wanted at 11, if they were even planning to take 11 to begin with. So I did kind of laugh at the Cameron Lund pick, because Doug Wilson Jr. gets on the mic and says the Sharks try, and Mike Grier's not paying any attention. Like, he's on the phone wheeling and dealing right then.
Yeah, and Skylar, it feels like the Sharks, we have been enjoying their drafts, and our expectations were higher, and they disappointed us because they went back to pre-Doug Wilson draft. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. This feels way more like a Tim Burke draft than it did a Doug Wilson Jr. draft. And again, does that mean that someone came in and fucked it up? Possible. I don't know. But you know what? All GMs have shit drafts. And this draft, again, there was no consensus on rankings at all. Like, usually there's a lot more consensus on rankings. So it might just turn out to be a shit draft, man. Like, and we'll never know.
Or it might turn out that all those players that I thought, hey, that's a good player at 11, and that guy, and that guy, and that guy, none of them panned out. And Bystedt at 27 was the guy that the Sharks should have drafted at 11, and they got him at 27. You never know, especially in a year like this. So there's I think
so Tony's saying Mike Grier's to-do list, a new head coach, obviously, and staff, UFA scoring. I mean, UFA is going to be interesting because we'll get to that. Let me just go through the rest of this list here. Add undrafted players to prospect pool for the Barracuda. Trade some players, add some more Canadians to the prospect pool. I don't know if you just necessarily need more Canadians, but I mean, I welcome more Maple Leaf sucking compatriots. And add to the scouting staff. Yeah, I think, obviously things are obviously going to get changed. UFA is going to be interesting because the Sharks, obviously you have the Evander Kane situation kind of still hanging over them, which kind of sucks, but I'm not as mad at this as a lot of other people are, just because I understand how this works. Like, you pay these people a ton of money to do this arbitration work, and they work on their schedule, not yours. That's just the way the world works.
Yeah. Yeah, the Evander Kane thing definitely is looming over the Sharks. And Mike Grier's just going to have to deal with... I don't know about you, Ian. I just feel like a settlement is coming. And I do think the Sharks will get out of it. I think the Sharks full well believe that they will win this. But in any event, I think just to cut ties, just get it over with, I could see a settlement coming anyway. And when that happens, I think the Sharks will have the cap space that they need to do whatever the heck they want. So I do want to go back, because kind of tying into the question that you just brought up, and I did want to get back to Uriel's question about what big name do you hope Mike Grier can pull. I've seen some people in the chat mention William Nylander. I think Tony had thrown out like a first LeBanc someone.
There's
for
no way,
Nylander.
But if
I don't know if
Nylander, they're not taking LeBanc's cap hit.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I would like Nylander here, but I don't know. Oh, it was Aiden Hill. That was the I actually do think, and hey, I'm the one who predicted Aiden Hill to come to the Sharks last year. So I do have this weird feeling like Aiden Hill becomes a Toronto Maple Leaf. I just don't think it's going to be for William Nylander. And I don't think Aiden Hill is going to be starting in Toronto next year for sure.
No.
But I do feel like that's going to be a thing. But the name that I haven't been able to escape has been Jesse Puljujärvi. And Hockey Jerk, I know, has been on that train a little bit as well. He's been on Nylander. But Jesse Puljujärvi, I think, is a name who could definitely help out the Sharks. I still think, despite the fact that he did have a breakout year last year, he's still overall underwhelmed. Ian, I don't remember your opinion on that, but I was super high on Puljujärvi in his draft year.
Yep.
And he hasn't met that expectation. It was a lofty expectation, but I thought he could have made it, and he still can. I think he'd be a perfect addition to the Sharks. But the question is, what price is it going to cost? I don't want to see Mike Grier trade any more 2013. 2013. Go ahead and trade 2013 picks. We don't need those. 2023 picks. But Edmonton trading within the division, that's just going to add to the price to get someone like Puljujärvi.
Yeah.
But that's just the name that I can't shake.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I mean, like, there's players that obviously got moved over the draft weekend that, like, you would like to see a team that thinks that they're going to be competitive. Like, you'd want to see the Sharks go in after, right? Like, and even at the cost, like, I don't think Alex DeBrincat went for all he could have gone for. And I understand that there's obviously cap.
Man. Alex DeBrincat with that crop of youth in Ottawa. Ottawa's still not going to be a good team next year, but they're poised.
They're going to score a lot of goals. I just don't know how many they're going to keep out of the net.
Exactly. And hey, they don't have Pierre Maguire anymore, so that's another cuff off the ankle that they no longer have to deal with. So Ottawa's going to be scary with DeBrincat. It just might be another couple of years before that happens.
Yeah, like I just think
that's another player. That's an elite player in my opinion that the Sharks had no chance of being able to acquire, because I don't even know if they can acquire Puljujärvi.
Well, here's the problem, right? Like, DeBrincat's obviously going to get paid, and you still have to pay Timo Meier, and you don't know how the Kane thing is going to work out, and you still have to get rid of, if you're going to bring in a guy like Alex DeBrincat, obviously you have to move money off this blue line. Period.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
That's that.
I think Radim Šimek's the first one to go before Vlasic.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to happen. That's all.
I mean, Radim Šimek, you could bury a lot of that. Like, before the season, I thought a lot about Radim Šimek as a buyout candidate, but now with looking at how much you can stash in the AHL, it doesn't make any sense to do that. So you either have to trade him, you could bury him and you get about the same as you would if you bought him out.
Yeah.
And the Barracuda do need defensemen.
They do. Actually, I pulled up my Barracuda chart for next year. And if they bring back Milosh, I think Milosh goes back there. And then they got Hadaka, the returning off injury Knizhov, who I still think is going to start with the Barracuda. And then Knyaztsev, and then Nick Cicek's there for reasons, I guess. I mean, I don't hate Nick Cicek. I just I don't know if it was worth the NHL contract. That's all. But yeah, there's still at least 2 spots on the Barracuda defense, and Šimek being a veteran, a very expensive AHL player, but wouldn't be the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Tony asking, could they buy out Erik Karlsson? No, that buyout would be absolutely insanity.
I need another one of those. Actually, I need about another 4-pack of these 12% beers to stomach that Erik Karlsson.
Yeah, no, that contract is way too much signing bonus in it. No, and I'm not, and I would never advocate for buying out Erik Karlsson to begin with. But to do it would be insane. Like, the cost benefits would not be good here. Let me find the yield buyout calculator because I'm curious. Ye old buyout calculator. Where are you?
That'll be through Cap Friendly, I would assume.
No, where's the calculator? Give me that. There we go.
While you're looking that up real quick, mentioned the Barracuda roster earlier, and a lot of players incoming. Nick Milosh, for example. Do the Sharks bring him back? I think the Sharks do, but I don't see much NHL upside there. The Sharks have a number of players who are going to be RFAs after this season, or in 5 days, sorry. And I could see a bunch not returning. Joachim Blichfeld. Joachim Blichfeld's a player that I thought would have been traded today for, even if it's a 5th or a 6th round pick, something like that. I think Blichfeld needs a fresh start, and I would like to see the Sharks get something for him, because I don't think they bring him back. Jaden Hobgawaks, I don't think has any trade value, so I think they just let him walk. And I know there's a couple others, but Shimolevsky comes back for sure.
So the Erik Karlsson penalty. To not have Erik Karlsson play hockey next season, it will save you $133,333. That is your cap savings next season because of the signing bonus. He would still count against the cap next year for $11,366,667. 23-24, it gets a little less painful. 2.866667. And 24-25, 3.36667. 25-26, it gets awful. 9.366667 against the cap. Another $11 million against the cap for the 26-27 season. $11.8667 million again. And then it's 1.866 until the end of time. Like, it's absolutely dumb.
Chat is getting on me, rightfully so. It speaks to how long the Sharks offseason has already been. Yes, Joachim Blichfeld did sign like 6 weeks ago.
My brain is mush.
So nobody's going to be trading for Joachim Blichfeld. That's for sure. Yeah, no, good call, chat. Sorry about that. Erik Karlsson, at work today, I actually talked about Ilya Bryzgalov, how he's still getting paid by the Flyers, and I said I still want to make whatever it is, $3 million or whatever, to not play for the Flyers. That is my life goal, to make millions of dollars to never play for the Philadelphia Flyers. And Erik Karlsson would live very comfortably the rest of his life, and be able to afford all the surgeries that he needs. Yeah. If he was bought out.
To me, like I said, I think kind of bringing it back in, reeling it back in here. This draft didn't give me all the warm and fuzzies for the future, because the present isn't very good. I think Mike Greer's got a lot of work. I think you guys have been around me long enough to know that I will give this time to play out a little bit. The early signs on this aren't great, right? I don't feel a lot of warm and fuzzy for this franchise right now. I feel like even worse than I did before, like when they fired Bob Bugner, and I was on here going like, this team is just fucking directionless. And I still feel that way. And that's not a feeling I really wanted with the new GM in place and the draft now in the books.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel more excited about what we've done in recent years than what happened today. I would like to think that in a couple of years we'll be looking back at this and say, wow, the Sharks really, I don't know if lucked out's the right term, but look at all these teams who had all these draft picks and it didn't work out for them. But the Sharks knew what they were doing, and they hit 4 home runs out of this, and it could happen.
I mean,
as the percentage
I would like
is low,
nothing more to be wrong.
But again, we want to be wrong on this, especially this year. But it's just that this year's draft has to have an asterisk. There's no consensus to the picks, or the players. Shane Wright was the only consensus pick, and it's been since 2019 that we've heard about Shane Wright being the de facto first overall pick, and he went 4th.
Yeah.
So that right there says to me, this year more than any is a complete crapshoot. The scouts did the work as best they could, but things will get back on the rails next year. And I'm looking forward myself to being more prepared for the draft this year, next year as well. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Again, like just in the chat here, some comments about Hasso Plattner. I mean, I wonder if there was a little too much ownership meddling in the process to just the way that this offseason's been run screams owner interference to me. The way Bob Bugner was let go so late.
So there, okay, with the Bugner thing, because I wasn't around for that either.
Go ahead.
I agree with that. We know there is a precedence for Hasso Plattner getting involved in management decisions. This is the whole reason why year after year I kind of rolled my eyes whenever someone mentions Hasso Plattner, because even though he is hands off most of the times, he picks the worst times to put his hands on the team. And so it very well could be possible with Bugner. I think there was more going on. I think because my understanding, despite whatever Jonathan Becker said, my understanding is that Mike Grier has been the guy for the Sharks for at least 2.5 weeks. So that to me, at that point, they said, okay, but we've talked to Bob Bugner. Maybe Mike Grier talked to Bob Bugner off the ice. I think they were even teammates in Buffalo, but I might be mistaken there. And decided, you know what, let's part ways. I even heard a thought that maybe the coaching staff had a little bit of an incentive on July 1st. I don't know what their salaries are. The Sharks, more than anyone, are pretty, not transparent, pretty cloudy when it comes to things like that. So maybe that's the reason why they made the decision to cut them on July 1st.
It's so dumb, right? Like cap friendly exists, but yet it's always like, oh, we signed this player, but due to our thing, we're not going to tell you how much. You have to wait for cap friendly to tell you because, like,
unless you're Evgeny Dadonov, and no one has any idea about your clauses. I'm not going to discredit what you're saying, Ian, either, because we just don't know. Coach contracts more than anything have been the least disclosed.
I feel I have like a shark with an assault rifle in my Twitter feed right now. Because I keep talking about Hasso, and Tiger keeps sending me a picture of a shark with an assault rifle to get me back on script.
All right.
Yeah, Bob Bugner getting hired by Detroit. I'm not surprised that he got hired as quickly as I think. Bob Bugner's a good assistant coach. I just don't think he's a good head coach. Like, I think he's a fine assistant. I just don't think he should be the guy running the whole thing. So I think it's a good hire for Detroit.
I completely agree. The only move that I didn't agree with that Detroit made this week was trading for Ville Husso today and giving him a ton of money for half a year of NHL experience.
There's another team I'm fascinated.
They gave him 3 years at almost $5 million per season.
Man,
for half a year of NHL experience and a dismal
Didn't they pay Nedeljkovic
AHL
kind of similar too?
They did. Well, they gave him 3 by 3,
okay.
I think. Yeah.
I mean, they've got some time to kill, right? Because Costa's going to take some time to be in the NHL. If Costa's your guy going forward.
But you know what, though? Steve Yzerman gets carte blanche in this league.
For sure.
Like, Steve Yzerman could make 8 terrible moves in a row, and no one will care. The people in Detroit might care, but he's fine. I'll trust. Unlike a couple of these picks, I will trust Steve Yzerman's decisions until they go back.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into like a lot of this stuff when we wrangle Jerk and do a TTG, because I think there's a lot of other league stuff that we'll probably do then. So I'm gonna try and save this for Nedeljkovic, though, just because I brought him up, has another year at $3 million.
Okay, so it was 2 by 3 then. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm I don't know, let it play out. The theme of the day. Yeah, I think the Red Wings are I think they're on the right track. Did you really follow any other teams, like any big winners to you?
No. So that's actually going to be my entire weekend. You'll probably, if you follow me on Twitter, this is kind of my sign off in a way. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm at Kevin Lacey 22, and you'll probably see me bring up random comments about other teams' draft classes, because I came home from work. I had 30 minutes to look up the Sharks draft class and come up with this. But I appreciate everyone who came out to watch tonight. Again, chat. You guys are killing it, and we love it. Just like last night with Ian's 4-hour show. I mean, we were not planning to go 2 hours like we did tonight, and there's been a lot of fun, a lot of things to talk about, even despite the C to D draft class the Sharks had. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts regarding other teams' classes? I love, the only thing that I noticed was Curtis Brown's son was drafted by the Winnipeg Jets, which I think is pretty awesome.
I think my big winner, I think obviously like Seattle. Seattle's my big winner.
Seattle because they got Shane Wright.
They
have
a pretty decent draft class. They have Shane Wright, and their second round pick was pretty good too. No, I don't have it up because again, why prepare? They picked up someone else really good that I really like. Maybe someone in the chat will help me out as I bring up the tracker here.
I'm pulling it up right now. So they drafted Jagger Furcus.
Yes.
Okay. Yanni Neiman, Nicholas Coco, David Goyette, Ty Nelson, Ben McDonald, Tyson Joe. Yeah, and then we're getting real. They got a lot of picks, though. They got 10?
Yeah.
11? Oh, they had 11. Kraken had 11 picks. And for Coachella Valley, again, probably none of these players play in the AHL next year. But with Coachella Valley now being in the fold, you're going to need to start bringing in more and more prospects so that you can fill out an AHL roster and truly tell, all right, who's going to make the jump to the NHL one day. So now is a great time for the Kraken to have 11 draft picks.
Yeah, I thought they had a really good draft. Yeah, I mean, I think Chicago is probably my loser. I mean,
I'm glad you said that. I was not exactly thrilled with the first round that the Blackhawks had.
Not only
yesterday.
that, you give up DeBrincat, you give up Kirby Dach, like guys that like you're rebuilding your rebuild basically.
With new management, it said to me like this is a total cleansing of the organization. But I think there is some justification there because when the Blackhawks went to the bubble playoffs, they were supposed to be in a rebuild, and then they overachieved. And then what ended up happening was the Blackhawks then built off their overachieving year without remembering that they were supposed to rebuild. And so now they're in that dark territory where they have to basically start it all over again. So I don't necessarily.
I don't know, man. Like Alex DeBrincat's 24. Like he could still be there. He could still be.
Oh no, that's the piece you build around.
That's the part I don't get. And then because Duncan Keith announced his retirement today, any savings that they got from moving DeBrincat have been eaten up by their cap recapture penalty.
Oh. Well.
Yep.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, it's brutal. We'll hit this up on when we sit down and do a TTG because there's so much stuff like around the league that I do want to talk about at some point, but like my brain is mush now. We've kind of gone pretty long tonight.
Yeah, you've done 6.5 hours.
My brain
now.
is like toast between like and obviously like something that I didn't mention yesterday and I wanted to mention just on a personal note. The other day, before I got home from camp, from being out on vacation, I put a call on my Twitter and I said, "Hey, my son wants me to help with his YouTube channel. If you guys could just throw him a view, I would be eternally grateful." And you guys never disappoint. I wish I had the foresight to record his reaction when he saw that his video had like almost 100 views.
Hey!
And he was like so ecstatic. So I mean, I just want to thank you guys for that, because obviously, like, no one has to, like, you guys follow me mostly for my hockey takes, maybe for my snark on a few other things, and but you don't follow me to watch my son play with cars on a four-wheeler trailer. But you guys did that for me, and I super appreciate it.
That's awesome, man. So what's the, just for those who aren't in the know, where can they see your son's YouTube
it's
channel?
It's called Calum Plays. If you'll see it, he's got a couple videos. I tried to help him with a few like other videos, because a couple of his videos is just him kind of just goofing around on his tablet and recording the screen, which is fine. He's 8. We're gonna do some more stuff eventually once we figure out a new plan for some more videos to do for his thing, and I don't know, we'll figure it out. But so just Dave in the chat hitting us up with the $5.8 million cap recapture for the Blackhawks next season.
Wow!
So weaponizing their cap space? Nope.
Oh. Well, I guess Malcolm Subban's coming back to the Chicago Blackhawks next year to be...
All right. My goodness. All right, guys, I super appreciate y'all being here all weekend. I want to thank you guys for, on behalf of like pretty much everyone under the Teal Town umbrella. But obviously you guys stuck with me and Mark, and that 4.5 hour slog has like a bajillion views overnight, which is amazing. If you suffered through it on like the audio replay, kudos to you even more. Because I know there was like some spots of dead air. Probably the most, I think it was probably the most challenging show I've ever done, because normally when I come on, A, someone else is hosting, and B, we generally have an idea of what we're going to talk about. But to have to just fill air for 4.5 hours with no real plan other than just kind of react to what's happening and talk about different things for the Sharks, probably the most challenging, most rewarding. Like, I felt like $1 zillion, even though my brain was mushed after it for doing it. I think it's probably going to go down as one of my favorite memories of doing this. And I think we've been doing this for 6 years now or something stupid like that. Like, it's been a long time. It feels like it's been an eternity. But yeah, so I just really want to thank all you guys for sticking with us and supporting us the way that you guys have. Because without you, I mean, like, we're just a bunch of blowhards on the internet talking to no one. And we did that at one point. I'm glad we don't have to do that anymore. Kevin, any final thoughts you want to add?
Yeah. Hey, we should... with the filling in dead air and everything, we're now going to call you Ian James Duffy Reed. So I already said I'm Kevin Lacey and did all that. I want to leave you guys with one more thing. Actually, a self-plug, and then my hockey team is playoffs next Tuesday night. If you feel like going out to Silver Creek Sportsplex and watching a mediocre beer league team attempt to make the championship game for the 3rd straight season, maybe we'll actually win this time. But what I wanted to leave you with was last night, if you were watching the ESPN feed, because it's ESPN and that's all you need to know about that, we were robbed of Gary Bettman announcing the trade that the Sharks made in the first round of the draft. So, because I know Eric, who is currently in London, England, Puck Guy 14, is currently in England right now, I'm sure he will appreciate this. So, we have a trade to announce. The San Jose Sharks trade the 11th pick. Hold down, you're not making enough noise here in the Bell Center now. All right, so, and it doesn't involve you either, so pipe down. All right, the Sharks trade the 11th pick to the Arizona Coyotes for the 27th overall pick, a 34th overall pick, and the 45th overall pick, which ESPN originally wrote as 32nd and 43rd. I know I've always joked about how ESPN hasn't realized that the Tampa Bay Lightning from 2004 was not the last Stanley Cup champion, but apparently they must think that the NHL still has 30 teams. In that case, they would have been the 32nd and 43rd pick. But anyway, Arizona, you're on the clock.
That's not what happened, because
So
what
there
actually
you go.
happened was I think he announced the trade backwards and said San Jose was on the clock. Yeah.
Even better. See, I didn't get to see it myself because ESPN just decided John Butchercross all day, like he knows anything. So yeah, there's your trade. I'll be sure to do it backwards next time. So, yeah, there you go, Puckeye. That was for you. I hope you have a great time.
There you go. All right, guys. Again, appreciate everyone coming along for the ride. This was a fun show. So this was a fun 2 days, and I look forward to doing this again when free agency happens. If the Sharks do something in the meantime, though, we will talk about it, because we always do. We're going to try and go off air and wrangle Hockey Jerk and try to nail down a time to do Teal Tinted Glasses. I don't know if we're going to get one in before free agency or not, but I think it's going to be just all the best laid plans for trying to, be short and do one topic. I feel like we have a multi-topic extravaganza coming on Teal Tinted Glasses.
Yeah. Yeah, we went into the summer saying we're only going to do 45-minute shows, and next show...
I think that goes out the window.
Well, yeah.
All right.
This was fun, man. I hope... thanks for sticking with it, Ian, and thanks all in the chat. Again, you guys were killing it. So many different names in the chat tonight, so love seeing the comments. So thank you very much.
Yes. What's going on in the chat? Okay.
They're making fun of Gary Bettman.
Oh, my head. Yeah, I'm sorry. I twitch. It's a nerve thing. All right. If you want to take part in the show or follow us or find it afterwards, you can always find us on tealtownusa. You can always find us in audio format, iTunes, Google Store, whatever it is now for Google stuff, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, we are probably there. And again, if you ever want to be aware of when we want to go online, hit the bell. You'll be notified when we are going to go live. But other than that, we bid you adieu on this 2022 draft. We will see you next time.